Emily Collard from Public Health England, and as always with Chimwewe and Womi providing us excellent secretariat support. Thank you all for joining the third webinar for our logistics series. We are very pleased to welcome back to speak with us again Felix, who I'll introduce again in a moment, but many of you are very familiar with Felix now from past presentations. Today, we will focus in detail on temperature-sensitive logistics. Translation services are available. Please click the bottom of your screen to access the translation services. And that's a good reminder for both myself and the other panelists and anyone asking a live question to speak slowly so that the translator can keep up with us. If you have not already done so, we encourage you to join the PHEOC community of practice on Discord. We'll post that link in the chat box. It's also in the intro flyer in your screen right now. So in addition, after this session, you'll receive a survey about your experience with the course. Your feedback is very important to us in helping us shape future presentations, so please consider adding input. The presentation today will be followed, as always, by question and answer sessions. Today, we're hoping to hear from you both through the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, and then also we hope to provide some time for live questions. So please feel free to submit questions in the question and answer box or formulate them throughout the presentation, and we will call on you if there's time at the end. Because the topic today might raise a number of questions that are very particular to individual country situations, please put any questions about individual situations in the Q&A box, type them in, and use the time to ask live questions for those questions that might be broadly applicable to all individuals and participants. We've never had a problem with that in the past, but we realize with today's session, it might be there might be some particular questions that come up that you'd rather write in the Q&A box. So if I remind you of this again during the Q&A session, that is why. At the very end of the Q&A session, we're also going to take 5 minutes to have a larger discussion and get some feedback from you all. And Emily Collard is here to lead us through that session on Menti. So without further delay, let us move forward. And if you'll excuse me one moment, I think my screen is freezing, but hopefully you can still hear me. So I will take this moment to introduce Mr. Felix Ingabire. He's a pharmacist, an epidemiologist, and an MBA with more than 10 years of experience in supply chain management, procurement and logistics, sales and marketing, and business administration. He's currently serving as the logistics officer at Africa CDC, where he assists in planning and implementing the Africa CDC overall supply chain management strategy. He's a member of the African Task Force for Coronavirus, where he supports the supply chain and stockpiling technical working group. Felix is also a member of the African Vaccine Delivery Alliance. Felix has broad experience in pharmacy, logistics, and supply chains management, both in public and private sectors. We are very excited to have him back again today for another presentation. And Felix, without further ado, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was a warm introduction. And it's my pleasure to be back and talk now about temperature-sensitive logistics. I will remind our participants about the objectives we had when we prepared this webinar series. And we talk about upstream and downstream operations when we talk about temperature-sensitive logistics. And we also discuss about risks and controls when it comes to vaccines delivery along the supply chain from the manufacturers up to the jab administered in the arm of the client or the patient. So you remember that that's this slide where we say that at the end of this webinar series, we would like our fellow participants to have an overview of roles and responsibilities when it comes to logistics section in the PHEOC. I think this was done in our very first presentation. And also, I remember last week we discussed about resource management, we talked about resource typing, resource readiness. And now we are discussing the management of temperature sensitive logistics. We hope that we'll be able to describe and discuss the components of an LMIS, the Logistics Information Management System, so time allow. But this will be for another presentation. So today we're discussing the third point, the temperature sensitive logistics. Yusuf, can you confirm, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Felix, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Yusuf.
Okay.
So, temperature sensitive logistics. The aim of temperature sensitive logistics systems and processes is to ensure that all consignments of vaccines and other products and medical commodities that require cold chain are fit for purpose when they arrive where they're expected to be used at their destinations. So ensuring that these products arrive at the point of delivery, yes, and at the point of use, being fit for purpose. This is the aim of temperature sensitive logistics we are discussing today. And we say why temperature sensitive logistics? This is because when vaccines and other pharmaceuticals that require very specific transport and handling and storage conditions uh, are not properly managed, this can cause a lot of troubles when it comes to their intent and their use, the intended use. So this TSL webinar will focus on what to do to effectively manage these commodities and how to do and meet the industry and regulatory requirements that go with these products that require cold chain especially. So pharmaceutical procurement, pharmaceutical movement, storage of these products, these are highly regulated. And it's very important as the PHEOC staff to ensure that international and local standards are met in every element of the supply chain operations. So now we have two parts. We have the upstream. This is operations that are made from the manufacturer to the time the product hit the point of entry of a particular area of a particular country. And this is the first thing we are discussing, what happens upstream. So in a humanitarian context, upstream is the supply part of the supply chain process. So how do you get the commodities? How do you prepare them up to the point they reach the entry point of a country? So there are three key elements for the upstream operations in the context of vaccine supply in the humanitarian supply chain. These are the manufacturers of these vaccines. We'll be talking about them. The procurement agencies, we'll be discussing them a little bit, and also of the third-party logistics. We discuss them as well. So talking about the manufacturers, it's important to know that vaccines are manufactured by private companies, but these private companies, they manufacture vaccines in collaboration with multiple advisory, licensing, and regulatory bodies. There are many, and WHO, the World Health Organization, is the lead, is mainly the lead for these operations when it comes to vaccines manufacturing. And the aim here is to produce sufficient vaccines to meet demand, but also that are compliant with safety conditions, with other regulations, as we'll be discussing them further down the road. These were the manufacturers. Now, the procurement agencies, it's good to mention here that countries can opt to procure vaccines unilaterally or through other means. So if a country like Ethiopia wants to procure vaccines, they can procure directly, but most of the time they may procure them through other means and through other bodies. For instance, for the COVID-19 vaccines, in the COVAX context, the UNICEF Supply Division plays a key role in procuring COVID-19 vaccines and other ancillary commodities on behalf of countries that need these vaccines and these products as well. So the procurement is done by the UNICEF Supply Division in Copenhagen most of the time, but in collaboration with the countries and the bodies that are procuring these vaccines. So critical elements of what COVAX and UNICEF Supply Division are doing is to keep close collaboration with the World Health Organization, to organize the import licensing according to regulations, make sure that these vaccines that are intended to go to a place have all the licensing regulatory documentation is required, ensuring that the product is stable, and ensuring also that these products will be paid, ensuring those letters of credit are in place, and ensuring that all other aspects that need to be complied with, like the labeling and other conditions, are met by the manufacturers, by the countries, and by all the players in the supply chain. So they ensure that the products meet the specifications, and these products have to meet and do meet the temperature maintenance requirements as stated by the manufacturers and described in the labeling that we'll be discussing further. Now, third-party logistics. These are organizations that are engaged to undertake transport or warehousing on behalf of an organization or a country. Let's say you need to move things from China. I keep the example of Ethiopia, and the UNICEF Supply Division and WHO in the COVAX facility may not have the planes or the cargo to move these vaccines. Then they may contact a logistics company or an airline to carry these vaccines to their point of destination. So these are the third party logistics or third party contractors. These contracted 3PL must be able to demonstrate compliance with international and national regulations in relation to pharmaceutical handling. So before a 3PL is engaged, they have to demonstrate their capacity and their willing to comply with norms and regulations in place and that are guiding the pharmaceutical products handling. There's something called cold chain. If vaccines are not kept within a specific temperature range, they can lose their potency or strength, which means they be lost and wasted. Vaccines and the products that require cold chain must be kept in a controlled temperature environment from the moment they are manufactured until when they reach the user or the end client that will be using, the patient that will be using that vaccine or that commodity. I'll be focusing on vaccines, but when we talk these medical commodities, understand some diagnostics that require supply chain, understand some other products like, and there are many like insulin and other products that require cold chain. In the presentation, I'll be talking about vaccines, but these cold chain and temperature-sensitive logistics, they apply to all those products that require to be very sensitive about their temperatures they are kept in. So managing consistent temperature across upstream and downstream, from the manufacturer to the point of entry, and from the point of entry to the point where a patient or a client will receive the jab, maintaining the temperatures that are required. This is what we call cold chain management. In pharmaceutical operations, this we call, and this will be what we mean when we be talking about cold chain management in this presentation. So it's very important, it's very essential that the cold chain is not broken across the whole supply chain, from the manufacturer to the last user, to the last mile. And all the elements of downstream and upstream operations must be able to manage the packaging, the transport, according to the specifications that the manufacturers have advised and have put in the manual in the manual of the product. So if, for instance, a product or a vaccine has to be kept under 70 degrees, specific containers for these have to be availed, and packaging systems have to be used to ensure that the temperature-sensitive cargo is kept at the correct temperature the whole time of the supply. So to ensure, so as to ensure that there's no damage or no harm in any way. And the specific container and packaging systems are also used to ensure that temperature-sensitive cargo is kept at correct temperatures. So manufacturers will indicate what temperature a specific product, a specific vaccine needs to be kept at. So it's up to the logisticians and logistics partners and all of us who deal with logistics to ensure that the cold chain is not broken from, so this was mainly the upstream. Now the downstream, now from the point of entry to the last mile and to the point where the product is used, vaccine network supply chain includes the warehousing, maybe at the POE, at the point of entry, and then command controls. And also it includes the movement of these products, and these movements have to be aligned with the pharma good distribution practices guidelines. We'll share some links to these good distribution practice guidelines because they are available and they can be checked in detail. So all storage must be compliant to the import country guidelines. They may be a bit different, but most of the time the guidelines look alike. But also the licensing requirements have to be observed. These are downstream operations. The responsibility and accountability for full compliance in the qualified temperature control storage facilities and operations within have to be assured. The people who are accountable to ensure these, the people who are responsible of ensuring that, they have to know that it's their mandate to ensure that everything runs smoothly in accordance with the manufacturer's advice in accordance with the GDP, with the good distribution practices. And if something happens, we may be taken accountable, you may be taken accountable. It's important that everyone pull their part to make sure this is observed. The facilities, it's recommended that these facilities are audited by the technical people from the ministries of health or other global regulators like WHO or other bodies that may be able to provide technical guidance in terms of facilities that are handling these products that require cold chain and that are temperature sensitive. So now talking about thermal shipping systems, because these products have to be kept in a specific range of temperature. So how do we ensure that these products have been kept within these temperature ranges? Then there are thermal shipping systems. If vaccines are not kept within the temperature range that have been advised by the manufacturers, then a temperature excursion has happened. It means if a particular vaccine, if a particular commodity has to be kept between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, then in a moment it goes up to 10 degrees or up down to zero degrees Celsius, then this is called a temperature excursion. And this means that the quality of the vaccine or of that pharma product may have been compromised and it may not be accepted for use because of safety reasons, but also because of efficacy reasons and what we call potency and strength of that particular product or vaccine. So all temperature excursions have to be and must be reported, and action or preventive measures or remedies have to be put in place to prevent any fault in the shipping systems that a particular system is using. So thermal shipping systems are the products and systems that keep products in the state intended by the manufacturers, and there are many in types and capacities. We see some of those. There are many, and they have different capacities, and they are manufactured by different companies. The good thing is they are available for acquisition. Should a specific organization or a country need them, they are available. So in the thermal shipping systems, there are 3 categories. We have active ones, we have passive ones, and we have hybrid. So the active thermal shipping systems have a mechanical or an electrical cooling system that's powered by an energy source, either solar or electrical, but it's actively heated or cooled by an energy source. They have thermostatic controls to keep the product at the cold temperature and have the highest temperature accuracy. The systems need to be connected to power to be reconditioned periodically, which means that they are more effective for long lanes and routes. This is one of their strengths is they are very accurate and they are very they're recommendable when long lanes are expected or long routes are expected. And some of them, here there are some photos of those fridges, those big cold rooms that are powered by solar and that are powered by electricity. Active thermal shipping systems. Now, for the passive ones, they use what we call phase change materials, such as water or ice or dry ice. And these systems are the most basic. They are very cost effective, but they can't be replenished or may not be adequate for long lanes and routes. When you put a dry ice in a box, in a cool box, it's expected that the box will be used quite quickly. It won't be recommendable to use it for long routes or for an operation that will take very long to finalize. They are less trustworthy in controlling narrow temperature ranges because there may be temperature excursions quite easily. And say that as most passive systems are single use, they can also cause problems with waste management and disposal. Because if you have huge quantities of these passive shipping systems, then when you need to dispose them, it may create an environmental concern. Some of the passive shipping, passive thermal shipping systems, you could see some cooling boxes with dry ice. And I think this is very common in our African context, in our EPI operations, where most of the remote areas, they rely heavily on these passive thermal shipping systems, especially downstream as we're discussing. Then the hybrid ones use a combination of thermostatic controls and PCM and provide a good level of reliability and temperature control. So there you may have the systems that combine electric power source with those dry ice, and this may be more reliable than passive ones. So the decision about which system, if you use an active one or passive or hybrid, is based on in which context you are working in. Ideally, active systems may be the ideal ones, but according to the context, you may need to manage which system is most appropriate in the context of operation you are operating in. So when routes and lanes are planned, the most appropriate system will be chosen and then continuously monitored and reviewed. If you are moving a vaccine or a product from capital city to another city, you may rely on a solar system, but this also will depend on whether your context allows it. You are comfortable that it, or you will just put it in the cool boxes as we've seen it happening in many of our countries across the continent. There are advantages and the disadvantages of these systems. One of the pros for the passive systems is that they hold internal temperature, they can be shipped anywhere, they are low cost effective, they are good when no power source is available, they are low tech, so everyone, even with a limited knowledge, can use them. And there are no moving parts, circuits, or buttons. These are pros, but the disadvantages are what we discussed about the warehousing required for these big dry ice. Refrigerant must be conditioned to specifications, and they take time to pack. And data loggers, we see the data loggers late in the presentation, may not always be visible outside of the system. These are passive systems. The active ones, they are good because they hold temperatures constant for longer journeys. The internal temperature actively heated or cooled according to what's required. If the temperatures tend to go down, then they have a system to put them up. And if the temperatures tend to be to go high, then they cool them down. And they are environmentally friendly. they have little waste management requirements, and they are less labor intensive. But also, they are generally expensive. They may malfunction at any time, and often leads, I mean, the availability of them may be an issue because most of the time you see different, um, the, the, the need is higher than the supply. And they require an energy source, and also they may require significant infrastructure across the routes. These are the pros and cons of both types of shipping systems. You may look at them and decide according to the context again, which you may be able to use and which may fit your purpose, your objective. Now, in logistics, both sensitive logistics or temperature logistics or any other logistics, labeling is very, very important. And the labeling here, we say that it goes beyond identifying the content of a package. The label is a unique identifier which provides the source of the product, who manufactured the product, the name, the quantity in a box, the date of production or the date of release, and it's a verifier of authenticity of a product. The label also will include identification of lot or control number in case it needs to be traced, and reverse logistics is required, and this will help to protect against counterfeiting. The package may also have indicators or barriers to tampering, like a sealing, which will show if the package has been opened or tampered with. The storage and handling requirements will be clearly shown on the label, including required temperature ranges. So the label is very important for all these reasons, and it's critical. We say that there's no margin for error on labels because consequences of inaccurate labeling are too high. And there are many regulations that oversee the production and use of the pharmaceutical labels. These also can be searched. I think colleagues from many organizations that we have on the call and on the panel, they may be able to indicate more details on how labeling is regulated and how it should be regulated with very, very high standards, because a mistake or an omission may cost lives and may be very, very high to handle. There are many label types. The most common ones these days are the QR codes and barcodes. You can see them on this slide. The QR codes and barcodes are used to ensure authenticity of product and to allow tracing of individual items like vials or tablets, boxes or pallets of product. So these are put on cartons, but on a single, or sometimes also on a single vial, you may see these barcodes and these QR codes that confirm the authenticity and allows traceability of products. For those who are dealing, especially with upstream, but also with downstream, IATA has labels, and these indicate, for instance, if you have a consignment, if you have a cargo, it will label it so as to allow you to know which temperature ranges the product you are carrying or the cargo is carrying must be kept in. We know that the label style are the same, but the temperature ranges will vary according to the product carried by the cargo. Now, the devices that monitor the temperatures across the shipments. So the thermal monitoring devices are also many in a number and in types. There are many, and temperature monitors would be stopped and data would be downloaded for shipment and product disposition by the receiving site quality representative. As we see it, a manufacturer will put a logger, a temperature logger, a device that will capture the temperatures of the product across the shipment, during the shipment, until it is received by the person or the country that has ordered the vaccine or is using the vaccine. So these temperatures logs will be downloaded, and this will help to make a decision according to what will have been the temperatures exposed to products, or the temperature to which these products, these vaccines have been exposed to. Some of these monitors are visible externally, but some others are put inside. You will see them when you open the consignment, and you'll be able to access them and download the data about the temperatures that the products have moved through. Here, it's very important to mention that these monitors must be pre-qualified and calibrated for their shipment data recordings. There are many organizations like UNICEF, like WHO, but also the manufacturers and other organizations that provide pre-qualifications and calibration for this shipment, for people and for users to be able to say that the data recordings they are seeing are accurate and are reliable. So how do you know what are the visual alert monitors? The visual alert monitors will show changes to temperatures. If a product has been exposed to a change of temperature outside the desired range, for instance, this monitor that is presented on this slide will change color. The change in color will be irreversible, so the record will be permanent, and the temperature excursion will be recorded. For this one, you may see that for the first vial, if I may say that, or the first product, nothing has happened to the product. It can be used. In the second one, you may see that some excursions have happened, but in a range that's acceptable for use. So some excursions have happened, but you can still accept the product and use it. But in the last one, then the monitor will tell you it would be dangerous to use this product, and you must reject that. So temperature sensitive products will have such monitors that will let you know when you receive the product and you see the loggers, you will be able to identify what happened, and it will help you make a decision about how to go with the product you've received. And reading visual indicators, as I said, these indicators are many in types and brands. And it's very important for logistics officers, logisticians, and all other people who are working in these logistics to read the instructions carefully so that they can take an accurate reading, interpret what they see correctly. They must be able to make a decision about the state of the product based on the reading they've taken. So they have to be trained, they have to know, to be able to make an interpretation of what they're seeing, and they have to be able to read what they're seeing. A change for, I think this is what we're saying, that a change in temperature causes a strip to change color. and that change will be reversible. And this will let you know that a temperature excursion has happened. Now,
Felix, apologies for the interruption. Do you think we could wrap up in about 5 minutes so we have plenty of time for questions?
Oh, okay. Let me try to go as quickly as possible. So we are talking about the movement or across the cargo. So even the storage has to be also monitored. There are different types of storage chambers, freezers, and other commodities that monitor the temperature when these products arrive in warehouses. The temperatures have to be kept within the temperatures recommended by the manufacturers. So these are some of the fixed storage and the portable storage. For facility monitoring devices, they focus on storage facilities rather than individual products or batches of cargo. So if you have a big warehouse where these vaccines are kept, you may need facility monitoring devices. And these will be looking at what's the temperature in this warehouse. This is to ensure that all products entering the system are kept in stable, appropriately conditioned environments. Because the internal system or may be good, but if external conditions like the weather is too harsh, then it may affect even the interior part of the consignment. As I said, all the historical data must be available for audit on request, and they have to be calibrated and positioned in a way that will give you a full picture of what's happening in the warehouse. So how can we ensure quality and risk management when distributing vaccines, for instance, and that product? Because there are many risks that temperature excursions happen and that product may be damaged. So quality and risk in pharmaceutical production, storage, and distribution is controlled by a series of international and national regulations. There are many guidelines that say if something happens and a temperature excursion has happened, what do you do? So these are available, and I invite our fellow participants to search for them and be conversant with them. There's what we call good manufacturing practice, and this is a system that ensures that products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. This is for manufacturers, but it's important that all people who deal with logistics make sure that they are confident that the good manufacturing practices have been followed by the product manufacturers. There's also what is called good storage practices, and this, as I was saying, concerns how do you store these products these vaccines that have been produced. Now you have to store them somewhere before they are shipped or after they've reached your country. There are guidelines about how properly store them, and the good storage practices guidelines are available. Same for distribution. So the distribution of pharmaceuticals is governed by international national regulations, and these regulations cover all parties working downstream operations. So normally, a specific country will have its guidelines, but it will also want to comply with international regulations about distribution, about storage, about manufacturing, etc. So management of GMP, good manufacturing practice, GSP, storage practice, GDP, distribution, overall is sometimes referred to as GXP. And now talking about the risks, as I said, the first one is temperature. I think this is the most significant risk in TSL. temperature may go below the recommended range or above the recommended range. So, or temperature excursions that are beyond the product storage label claim must be reported, because this is a cold chain breach, and this may lead to a product or shipment being rejected. So this may happen when you are offloading, when you are transferring a cargo from a place to another, or even when you're handling the product across, or in a particular stage of the supply chain. It's very important to differentiate the Celsius and the Fahrenheit grading, because we don't have to assume. It's always better to check if the temperatures are written in Fahrenheit or in Celsius. And here there's a table that shows when they say absolute zero temperature, when they say freezing, when they say room temperature, average body temperature, boiling point. So these are the temperatures that you may check, and it's very good when you know these terms as logistics officers and the PHEOC staff. So another risk happens when there is transit duration. So a cargo has left China, but it has to go through maybe Addis Ababa or Amsterdam, and this transit duration is it's a big risk. Same thing when people move the cartons or the consignments, and these cartons, some vibration or shock is applied to a certain consignment. This may be a risk. These are risks that you may want to minimize or avoid as much as possible. Humidity is a big risk, and cross-contamination. If, for instance, you are moving different products, different diagnostics in the same, so cross-contamination is another risk. And when you are planning your supply chain, you have to anticipate and have measures in place to manage these risks. And chief of them is to apply rigorous quality standards and do as much as possible prior planning and assessment for the routes you are planning to use. So even if you are handling a specific one element of the system, it's vital that you know how your element works and how it's related to others, and what to do if something unexpected happens. The controls, there is a number of controls that need to happen during all the phases of vaccine delivery process. The first one is ensuring cold chain products are packed. Then the shipments are stored properly in the origin warehouse. The shipment are loaded in a truck properly. When in transit, these vaccines, the logisticians, the logistics officer have to do pre-alerts, the importation clearance, if possible, get pre-clearance. Custom clearance have to be fast-tracked. Shipment to or transfer to central medical stores have to be pre-arranged and fast-tracked as well. And temperature loggers have to be stopped and data downloaded when received to ensure that everything will happen as advised, as recommended, and quality test has to be performed. We have some sources that can be checked for more detail. I think these will be shared with participants. And I think, as Catherine said, it's better we discuss, and I stop I limit the presentation by these resources slide. Catherine, I'm through. Thank you very much for your attention.
Felix, thank you so much, and apologies for making you rush through the end there. I know it is, that was the critical information at a lot of points. So perhaps if we have additional questions or not enough time, we can always take those questions on Discord as well. I know people are probably particularly interested in this subject at the moment, and really appreciate you walking through very practically and giving us the logistics behind the logistics. So without further ado, I think we should move to questions. I see that there are a few questions in the Q&A box. We've also had some good comments posted in the chat. We do want to hear from the participants directly. If you all would like to ask questions live, please do feel free to raise your hands, and we will, the Secretariat, Chimwewe, will help me and call on people as we are able. In seeing now, it does not look like we have any hands raised currently, so I think what I'm going to do is pass it over to Yusuf. Yusuf, there's a lot of activity in the Q&A box, and perhaps you can give us a little bit of perspective and some questions there first. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Thanks to Felix also for this great presentation. I totally agree with him, and I understand how crucial, how important is this temperature sensitive logistics related aspect in the remote settings in countries with, especially in countries with limited resources. Just for a little bit of clarity for myself, Felix, when you talk about the downstream operation, does it also include the operations in the last mile, from, for example, the health center to the vaccinees? Does this is this included in the downstream operations you just mentioned?
Yeah, a fantastic question, and it would be deplorable if all the supply chain has been observed, the temperatures have been observed from upstream to point of entry, from the CMS, the central medical stores, to the regional stores, up to the maybe the district. But we missed the last part of we missed it in the last mile. In the last mile, I think we talked about the last 10 kilometers, but no, ideally you talk about when the product hits the arm or the mouth or the body of the user. So downstream operations go from the point, the time the product has hit the point of entry of a particular area of a particular country, particular territory, up to the time the product is consumed by the end user. So including the last mile, but I stand to be corrected. May I have missed it? But when we discuss downstream, it goes up to the last point where the product is used by the end user. Over.
Thank you, Felix. Probably another question, or just asking to hear about from you your experience about this matter. We understand that this temperature issue is can be sometimes a major constraint that will even impact the vaccination strategy and the related activities in a given setting, for example. Do you have any idea, any experience about using vaccines out of the cold chain, for example, in a controlled temperature chain situation, for example?
Thank you very much for for that question. There are many examples where a particular organization, a country, has ordered these quantities of vaccines, and sometimes they use half of it, and half of it is, another half of it is wasted, because sometimes I mean, it has happened that excursions were too unacceptable and the product had to be rejected. So for vaccines also require different temperature ranges. Uh, you may have a vaccine or a product that says it has to be kept between 2 and 8, but it can be used at the ambient temperature, let's say below 25 degrees, if it's used within this amount of time. It's used within 12 hours or 6 hours or 3 hours. It depends on the product, on the vaccine. So this has happened, and a caveat to it is a vaccine or a product may require minus 20 degrees, but with a caveat saying that if the product is kept between 2 and 8, then it can be used, and it's used maybe within 3 days. This is also acceptable. So these are the scenarios that are put in the label and that have to be carefully read and complied with, especially for the people who deal with these products. Thank you.
Good. Just a last question before I give you the floor back to you, Catherine. I see Benedicta Boama is raising the hand. One of the questions we have in the Q&A box is, what happens when there's a default with this temperature sensitive consignment during a dispatch via drones to remote areas, for example?
Yeah, it's a very, very important question. So now we've been discussing that products have gone outside the recommended ranges. But now what happens if you can't tell if it has gone out or not? I think if I understand the question, this is the question. So now there comes, it may be managed on a case-by-case basis, and with the judgment and with the expertise of the people dealing with the supply chain. If the drone has left, for instance, for the last 30 minutes, and it took off carrying products that require 2 to 8. So I think without going into much examples, I think that has to be managed case by case, and it may require that product be rejected, but also to the discretion and to the decision and expertise of the logistics person. They may recommend that product be used with caution, and these things have to be recorded and reported. Over.
Thank you very much. Catherine, we have more and more hands raised.
Yes, indeed.
So, and a lot of questions also falling into the Q&A box. So the floor is back, is yours, sorry.
Thank you, Yusuf. And I do want to make sure that we have all the questions posed. It might not be possible to answer them all within the time that we have.
Yes.
Chimwewe, do you think it would be possible to, let's see there, we have 4 hands raised at the moment. I do want to make sure Benedicta gets to pose a question and all those who currently have their hands raised. So Chimwewe, maybe if we could just ask each participant that has their hand raised currently to unmute and ask the question. And then Felix, with only a few minutes remaining, if you could answer a few of the questions, and then we can also respond further on Discord if you think they deserve a longer response. So Chimwewe, if you would please unmute Benedicta first, let's start, and then perhaps we can go to Paul after that. Over.
Hi.
Yes,
Please, am I
Benedicta. Yes, you are. Please continue.
Okay, Felix, thanks for answering my first question, but I wanted to place more emphasis on the fact that what if this temperature-sensitive consignment had a default, like it's automated, and a race sets when it's being sent by the medical drones to these hard-to-reach areas? How then would you know that it was able to go by its accuracy? That's my first question that Yusuf asked. And I wanted to know how do you track the lot and control number to the manufacturer to avoid counterfeit? Those are my questions. Thanks.
And thank you very much for the good questions. I think I touched base on the first one, that sometimes as a logistician or as a pharmacist or as a person who has expertise in that, you may use your judgment to assess the whole situation and make a decision whether the product has to be rejected or can be used with caution, and you have to report it and document it, and for if possible escalate it with the team, and then have a decision. On the second one, there are what you call GMP, good manufacturing practices. For AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Sinopharm or these manufacturers of vaccines, Merck, GSK, for them to be allowed to manufacture a product, part of the requirements for compliance with the GMP include assessing the devices that will be tracking the products that go with, that will be, these devices that will be shipped with the product. So as I said, there are many advisory boards, there are many scientific committees that go into ensuring that the manufacturers comply with GMP, and that these loggers, these device monitors are produced to the highest standard, to the highest quality, to ensure that nothing goes out of rails. But also, this is a continuous process. I saw one of the question in the QA, how often. This depends, but it's a continuous process, and these regulators will check on manufacturers and on other 3PL, and to ensure that what has been recommended is being abided by and is being followed by every actor in the supply chain of these products that are temperature sensitive. Briefly, I would say that, but people on the panel or others in the participants, they may also want to have a comment. Unfortunately, I don't think the time will allow. I submit for now. Over.
So are these temperature sensitive detectors time bound?
I would say so, because some may have batteries that have to, that may say they can work up to this number of days of months. And yes, I would say briefly yes, but there are many comments on those, because if you ship a product, also you expect it to be delivered in a specific timeline. So when you manufacture such a device, you will give it a more flexible or extended activity period, but it won't. I may not say it will work for the eternity. I mean, it will have some time where the device won't be reliable to use and to read when that specific time has elapsed. But as I said, there are more details to that. I submit for now.
Thank you, Benedicta, for these wonderful questions. We are running short on time and do have one more thing. I do want to give people a chance to ask questions though. So maybe if we can have one more live question raised, and that will be from Paul. And then Michael and Nala, I would encourage you to post your question in Discord, and hopefully we can have Felix join us again or engage on Discord a little bit. And apologies to everyone for running short of time, but Chimwewe, I would invite you to ask Paul to unmute. It looks like you are. So Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Mugembi, in person, and how are these processes or the supply chain becoming accessible to persons' abilities? Because you find that most of the time during this period we are having this pandemic, more so, not much is really talked on how inclusive we are becoming in all these processes of either access to vaccine or for persons with disabilities, and how manufacturers or even hospital or the Ministry of Health are ensuring that persons with disabilities are getting access to all this. I'm from Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Mugambi, and it's a critical point you've raised. I have to acknowledge that from what I've been saying, there have been efforts to make inclusiveness across the all what's being done in the world. I'm not in possession of such guide. I mean, of some materials that are friendly with blind people, but it's something that you've raised that has to be escalated and discussed in more detail, and specific actions and concrete actions have to be done in regards to what you just mentioned. For now, I've been seeing guidelines that are written in different languages or read in different languages, but for specific guidelines developed to be user-friendly with all people with disabilities, maybe blind or other disabilities. This is an agenda that has to be taken forward, and thanks for raising that. I'm at Africa CDC. We have panelists from WHO, from US CDC. I think this is something that has to be noted and worked upon when it comes to all these supply chain operations we've been discussing. Over.
Thank you, Paul, for this wonderful question, and Felix for the observations. I believe that, yes, we are almost running out of time and have one more thing to do. So what I would ask Michael and Nala and Farron to please do is please submit questions through Discord, or you can also join us again. I believe next week we will continue the discussions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer more questions. Apologies to everyone for not being able to answer all the questions today. But I think this is a particularly critical topic and a lot of interest. We do want to now go to Emily Collard, who's going to lead us through an online Menti session to gather some additional feedback. So Emily, over to you.
Thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone. I hope we won't keep you much longer. We just wanted to just quickly ask you a question to continue sort of, obviously these webinars are for all of us and about and useful for everybody. So we wanted to gather some a request from the group on what we think we could discuss in the next webinar on logistics. So we want to continue next week on the topic of logistics. So I've just put together a quick Menti session. I just posted the website in the chat, and I will just share my screen in 1 second. Felix, if you could stop sharing your screen, then I can take over and share mine. Perfect, thank you. And then I can, there we go. Can everyone see? Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, we can see. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
So this is just to say, this is what we've previously talked about in these webinar sessions, and you should be able to see the Menti website at the top and the number. And then, so these are just the things that we've already discussed in these sessions. So I just wanted everyone to, if they could go onto Menti. If you can't get onto Menti for whatever reason, can you post your response into the Q&A box, and then we can pick those up also afterwards. We can download them as part of this webinar, so we will capture everybody's requests. So we just want to ask everybody, what other areas or subjects within the logistics topic would you like us to cover in the next webinar? So if everyone could put their responses. Give a few minutes so that let everybody log on. If you use a separate tab, obviously don't leave the webinar because you won't be able to see the responses, but also or you can do it on your phone or anything like that. So it's www.menti.com. So we've got one response so far. I know we've got nearly a couple of hundred people on the call today, so expecting quite a few responses. So these that we want covered, so subject areas that we may not have discussed that you want to know more about within the logistics topic. So if there's anything else that you want us to talk about and to give some information on, so that we can learn a bit more about these particular topics within the logistics subject, that would be great if people can give some answers. So we've got a few coming in now so that we can try and get some more focused.
Emily, there's something about waste management. I think it's related to logistics. I think that's really something interesting to explore over the future. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. We've got some things: locally made transport media from remote areas, so legal implications. A couple of people asking about resource management and waste management, as you say. Yeah, waste management's coming up quite a lot. Warehouses and storage facilities is coming up a couple of times. Distribution designs or distribution formulas. A couple of times, asset management. Couple of people about local level transport and local level transfer or transporting. Safety and security, that's a good one. We've touched on security maybe a little bit in previous ones, but that would be an interesting session.
And I think the upstream operations can be indeed challenging, but the downstream operation can even be more challenging when it comes to especially the African continent, for example. I can see some comments related to that. I think that would be really a good idea to explore more. Yeah.
Yep. Monitoring and evaluation, that's always a hot topic. We've got some good ones coming in. So I think, I mean, I'll leave the Menti open for a few more minutes after the webinar. So if people have it on their phones, you can still continue to give your answers. Or as I say, if you can't get onto Menti, then please put any suggestions you have into the Q&A box, because we can also pick them up from there. I'll hand back over to Catherine now. And if people want to continue, then please do.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you for everyone for participating. I think, please feel free to keep adding thoughts and certainly engaging on Discord. I do want to do a couple of things to wrap us up. I know we are over time, and I appreciate everyone staying with us today. First of all, thank you so much, Felix, for taking us through the presentation today, for answering all our questions, and for all of the logistics that you have been doing with us for the past few weeks and will continue to do. It's really been a pleasure, and I think a very practical, hands-on experience. So a thank you certainly from me for the wonderful presentation. As always, thank you so much to Yusuf for joining as a panelist, proposing excellent questions and handling participant questions as well. And Emily, thank you for joining us and leading us through Menti. A special thanks as always to the Secretariat, Womi and Chinwewe, for helping us each week, and for our translators and other webcasters. I want to specifically, we've had a lot of questions about presentations and the certificates that follow. I'm posting right at this moment. I'm clicking enter. The link is in the Discord platform. So if you follow the link that I've just posted in the chat, you will find past presentations, and we will upload this presentation, including the slides, so you can share with colleagues. The flyers for each presentation will also be added there if you want to invite other colleagues. And then finally, the quizzes and certificates through that link. So that's the business for today. I'll hand it over to Felix and Yusuf and Emily for any final thoughts, but thank you all from me.
Nothing from me. Thank you very much, Catherine. And thanks to Emily and Felix.
Yeah, and nothing really from my side, but we've just highlighted some titles, some topics, but we did not go deep and discuss the details of each point. Each point has a lot of details, and I would invite our colleagues that are on the call to go and deep and read more about those, and if possible, share on the community of practice platform and other platforms. Otherwise, it was a pleasure to be with the participants and the panelists here on the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Felix, and thank you for all the really brilliant presentations, and for plugging the community of practice on Discord. We're always really trying to encourage everybody to share. So yes, definitely, if you have experiences or any additional knowledge or anything that interesting that you've read that you want to share with your colleagues, please do sign up to Discord and go on there and share with everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It was a wonderful presentation. Good to see you all, and a great discussion. And we will see you next week and hear from you before then on Discord.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.